Hey, this is Lucas, and I'm here with Dane and Sean, and we're gonna
Hi.
talk a bit. That's like the weirdest intro, sort of like I'm greeting
Have you never
an
done this
ex
before?
an ex-girlfriend or something. Hello, I feel awkward. Hey, how you
Well,
guys doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Uh,
Uh,
snow's starting to melt over here.
oh my goodness, it's like 100,000 degrees here in
Yeah, it's
Texas.
hot here.
Oh dear.
You have hot hair?
It's hot here.
Oh, okay.
It is
I don't
warm.
know.
I'm
Well,
in
if you're
shorts and a
standing in the
t-shirt.
sun, you would have hot hair. It's shorts. Yeah, it's shorts weather all the way here. And since it's East Texas, it's also sleeveless weather, but that's pretty much all year, just no
Yeah,
That's
that's all
sleeves.
year.
easy.
But you don't buy a sleeveless shirt. That's silly. What you do is you take a perfectly normal shirt and you cut the sleeves off of it, but like in a ragged way, and then
Yeah,
that's really Texan.
you got to give it character.
Yeah, but I don't feel like I've ever seen you do that, Sean. You came down from Canada and you have not transitioned to the sleeveless
No,
look.
I'm sorry. That's just too trashy for me. I won't. I
It's
won't
not
do that.
trashy.
It is
It's a beautiful kind of
for me.
thing.
For you, it's very appropriate,
It's
but not for me.
perfect for me. Okay, hey, let's read the Bible now that you've been mean. Okay, verse of the day. Do you guys get the verse of the day on your? Do you do a Bible app or something?
No,
Yeah, I've got it. I think.
Sean, you don't do a Bible app?
I don't. No,
What do you mean?
I just
You don't have
open my Bible.
you don't have any kind of app that is the Bible.
I have a Bible app in case I forget my Bible and I go to church and just in case, but I don't know that I've ever even used it.
What? Dane, is that? I mean,
No
am I
love, no
crazy here?
love for the Bible app.
Do
I've
you what?
I use more often than not. I used to use a physical Bible like exclusively, but over the years I've been like using like the Bible app, the YouVersion Bible app, um, and a couple other ones, but through oh, what is that?
I'm sorry.
Someone's
I accidentally hit some person speaking on the YouVersion app as you're talking about the
oh
YouVersion app.
yeah.
So
To answer your question,
sorry.
I use a digital Bible quite often, but I still have and will use a physical one, but I find myself more gravitating towards the digital one that I kind of have on me.
Yeah, I mean that's yeah, that's I mean cuz you're not insane, you know? I mean like why would you be carrying around an archaic codex when you could I mean like how many translations do I have here? I probably am in my pocket carrying like 200 English translations, not to mention German and French. Anyway, let's read this verse. It's Second Corinthians 4:18.
Uh-huh.
So if you guys want to look it up in your
Yeah,
archaic and
I'll go
digital
to look it
versions,
up.
feel free. I'm trying to see if I hear pages turning. Sean, are you turning pages or are you just gonna
No, this I have open at BibleGateway.com
Oh.
Yeah.
So you do
because
use the app.
I'm sitting in front of my computer
Oh,
recording
this
this.
is gonna confuse people. It's terrible. Okay, Second Corinthians 4:18 says this. So we do not focus on what is seen, but on what is unseen. For what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal. I mean, I guess my response is, yep, that's true. I mean, I don't have anything in
Yeah.
particular to say about it. Wait a
Uh
minute. Did it say what is
what?
unseen is
You
eternal?
just raised this verse for no reason. I thought
It's
there was
the
gonna be a
verse of
big
the
revelation
day.
here.
It's the
I
verse of the day.
so um I think because I have the Bible app or whatever on my phone, I have a widget on my screen. So I think I did see this verse earlier today. Um and it did make me think about uh something I talked about in my latest video on YouTube, with talking about what is faith. And anyways, I'm not sure if this is like an exact like connecting point for it or not, but um, while we do not look at things which are seen, but at the things which uh, wait, while we do not look at the things which are seen, but at the things which are not seen, for the things which are seen are temporary, but the things which are not seen are eternal. And And if I'm remembering this correctly, the verse just in front of this, yeah, for our light affliction, which is but for a moment, is working for us a far more exceeding and
Oh,
eternal
yeah.
weight of glory.
I
Um,
know that one too. Yeah.
this reminds me of um, the idea in Hebrews 11:1. Um, faith is the evidence of things not seen, the substance of things hoped for. Or I'm really botching that, but
Yeah,
I'm
no,
actually
it made me think of that too, though. Yeah, I was thinking of
yeah,
that. I bet Sean
that
could quote it.
that idea kind of resonates with me. I think because um, after I made that video, I get a lot of uh, comments and stuff sometimes, usually saying like how I'm an idiot, but that's
What?
okay. Um,
That's not true. Really?
well,
You people are telling you mean things?
sometimes, but anyways,
Oh,
one of the
good
things
grief.
was from I assume an atheist, and he quoted Hebrews 11:1 and, and emphasized the unseen and hoped for in it, and recognized it was his emphasis added, and then kind of I guess he might have missed how I explained it in the video. Um, if you watch like the whole thing over, but the whole idea was that a lot of Christians can get the wrong impression that uh, that faith involves, like, oh, we're walking blindly, and like we're just kind of, wishful thinking our way through life type of thing. um but in that verse in particular, like, it's revolving around this idea of reward and rulership alongside the king that is available in the future. And those things we don't see right now, but it's not like it's wishful thinking to that's going to happen. Like, no, like we're convinced that that is in the future based on the things that we already are sure of and know of, um, based on God's demonstrated faithfulness in the past. And since He's the one that's promising this, this as a possibility for faithful believers in the future, um, we're looking ahead. Um, and in that sense we're walking by faith, where we're walking and looking towards something that we don't see here and now, which is temporary, but to the thing that's promised, which is eternal. And I think that kind of ties into what this verse of the day is talking about. With what we see right now is gonna fade, but there's something that's coming that we don't see yet, and that is eternal.
Yeah.
Does that make
Yeah,
I don't know
that's
if
good. That made me think of I was kind of having this I've been like neck deep in making illustrations and charts for Revelation this week cuz I'm working on a book about it, but so I'm thinking in terms of like I've got that switch flipped in my head of like how do we chart this? How do we make a diagram of this? And what I
uh,
was just thinking is okay, so imagine a diagram where now NOW is in the middle, and that's the dividing line between um, beliefs realized and beliefs hoped for. On the left, it's kind of like a timeline. It's like everything before now, things that we believe, they're things that we believe about the past, so to speak, would be like beliefs realized. Would be like, I believe the sky's blue because I've seen it, and
mm,
the
mhm,
wall's hard because I hit my head on it, and whatever. Um, and but then what shifts at the now as you go along that timeline is like there are there are beliefs that will continue to be evidence based, but there's beliefs that are not yet realized. And I think what challenges people is they think that those are of a different substance, that like a belief about the evidential stuff is of a different essence than a belief about a hoped for thing, but they're not. They're like the belief itself is the same thing. It's being convinced. It's knowing that the thing's true,
mm,
Um, and so the difference is just the evidence. We have textual evidence for things coming in the future. We have, it's kind of a relational trust in the one whose words are recorded in the Bible. So that's the beliefs hoped for but not yet seen. that are like shoot out past that now point. Um, so anyway, I don't know. I'm not going to take the time to diagram that, but it's just kind of what was as you were talking about it, it's kind of what I was seeing was like
Mhm.
this
Yeah.
dividing, this dividing line.
Yeah, no, that makes
Sean,
sense.
do you have any you have any thoughts on this, or have you gone to sleep?
I'm looking at the whole chapter 4 in Second
Oh,
Corinthians.
yeah, overachiever. I don't use
No,
Bible
but
apps, and I read the whole chapter.
well,
That's what
it's
I'm
he's
hearing.
talking about renouncing secret and shameful things. He's talking about people who are perishing. He's talking about that we have treasures in jars of clay so that God's power can be displayed. He's talking about we're afflicted in every way, verse 8, but not crushed. We're perplexed, but not in despair. We're persecuted, but not abandoned. We're struck down, but not destroyed. Isn't that a song? Um, and he's talking about all these things. It's basically just a hard life of suffering, And in verse 16, he says, "But we do not give up, even though our outer person is being destroyed, our inner person is being renewed day by day." And he
Mm,
talks about light affliction in verse 17. So it's kind of like I think when he says we don't focus on what's seen, I think he's talking about pastorally Christians who are suffering right now, Christians who can feel in their bodies and in their circumstances that this world is not the way God designed it. That people are
mm,
getting sick, they're being crushed by poverty, their relationships are being destroyed, they're being persecuted for their faith, they're suffering in 101 different ways, but we don't focus on that. If we focused on that, we would all give up. We'd all end up in a mental asylum. We'd all be permanently depressed. We don't focus on that. What we focus on is kind of what you guys were talking about, the promises of the future, the better promises we have from Christ, knowing that all this outer stuff is going to pass away, but our inner person is being renewed day by day, but really what is also eternal. We're believers, so we're going to live forever. And so the light affliction we have now in light of eternity is going to seem like a blink of an eye. So we don't focus on now. Our motivation comes from what's going to be true of us forever and ever and ever.
mm.
So I
Huh,
think this is about perspectives on affliction.
yeah.
Yeah, I like, Lucas and I were yeah, we were kind of focusing and honing in on the things that are coming that are, that even though we don't see right now are sure, but I like how you kind of, dove into the what's happening in the temporary, the things that are seen, like, yeah, it's it's like suffering and, hardship and stuff, which is to be expected in this life, especially as we try to walk in sync with God, and yeah, that reminds me of also like Romans 8, where where the things where just the whole creation groaning and the joint heirship with Christ being conditioned on living life and experiencing the suffering that comes along with actually walking in his ways, not because his ways are bad but because his ways in this life are hostile to the way things are in this present evil age, quote unquote. And so yeah, I agree that yeah, the temporary stuff that is being talked about is definitely in view of like the suffering and the hardships and the stuff that we face here and now.
I was having a another mental image while you were talking. Um, Actually, both of y'all, it was kind of going on. It's like um, take something. There's a movie that does this. Okay, it's yeah, I think it's called "Romancing the Stone."
Oh,
I'm
I
gonna do
remember
this
that.
from memory, but I think it's in that movie where there's this clay statue, but inside of it is this really precious stone that is very old or whatever, ancient, very valuable stone. And the statue itself, they have to break to get that stone out. And I kind of wonder if is a good analogy for like, the stuff on the outside is little bits are breaking off, the paint's coming off, it's kind of melting away. But inside there's this refined stone that's going to be there at the end. Um,
Mhm.
I don't know. I guess that kind of is similar to First Corinthians 3, where it talks about like, at the end of your life, we're going to test it by fire, and we'll see what still remains. Um,
Mhm. What
so
what that made me think of, I've thought about this for a little while now, but the idea of, um, like, receiving, the free gift of everlasting life, and, that's something that believers, have as a present possession, but what we still also have is this mortal, weak body, and, the way I've kind of been thinking about it is in terms of, like, um, at the rapture, or like when we receive our resurrection bodies, that's like us receiving a body that's compatible with the life that was granted to us, uh, as the gift of God,
yeah,
which is
that's a good way to
suitable
put it.
for that. And
Yeah.
that just made me think about what you were talking about.
Yeah, it's like how could like this body does not contain well that which lives forever and that which can probably transcend the kind of experience we have now. It's wrapped up inside there, but it's not a good container for it. It's gonna break free.
Why do you say that? Like, how my how different will our bodies be?
Well,
You
I
know,
think
'cause
yeah, I think the what I'm talking about is the propensity to sin.
yeah, okay, I can
So
see
I'm
that,
not
yeah.
talking about like will we fly or not? I don't know.
I was
I
so that's where I thought
yeah.
you might be going, like, how much different will the body be, do you think,
Well,
in eternity
some
to be
people think it will
appropriate
be.
to eternal life?
I'm undecided on that factor, but as far as just like the reason it's not a good fit is like okay, it's like you have a car, but the car has this mind of its own and it always wants to drive to the strip bar.
Yeah.
And but inside the driver is trying to go to church, and it's like you're fighting the car, and so it's like it's not a good wrapper for the inner man or that seed that cannot sin because the exterior wants to steer away from what the interior wants. And
Mm,
yeah, so to come in harmony, to have flesh that comes in harmony with the spirit at the resurrection, I don't think we can really comprehend what that experience will be like. I mean, I don't know. It's quite unique. But Sean, you seem kind of triggered by the body will be different. What's going on there?
No,
You got
no,
a axe to grind?
I've been thinking that because no, just because so many people think that salvation is you lose you're just a soul floating in heaven or whatever in the vision of God,
Oh,
the beatific vision. But like as biblical Christians, we're committed to the idea that no, we're spending eternity in bodies.
yeah, our body. Yeah.
These
mhm,
bodies. And like what is the difference? Like that we don't age or don't get sick? But otherwise, I mean, what? Am I still only gonna be able to, like, deadlift a certain amount of weight and I'll never really be able to surpass that? Are we still gonna have all the limitations of our body? And so I was just curious if those
mm.
were the types of limitations you were mentioning.
I have some theories on that, but I'm trying to decide if it's worth going into.
Well, some
Um,
people some people say some people console themselves by thinking we'll get some type of superhero type abilities, like Jesus being able to pass through
yeah,
walls, like Kitty
yeah,
Pryde from the
that's a
X-Men.
popular thought. Yeah.
So
Mm,
it's
yeah,
like, I don't know, is that gonna be true? I mean, I don't know. I've been
it would be
seeing
cool.
on,
Pretty
yeah,
cool.
it'd be
Yeah, that'd be
cool.
cool. But also, I mean, I would say, so what they'll usually lean on is, verse that says we'll be like Christ. And I mean, I think the thing for me is we will be like Christ in some meaningful ways, but there's probably other ways that we will not be like Christ even then. Like for instance, we didn't exist from before time
Right.
began. So we will be meaningfully different in some ways, but meaningfully the same. And so I think that when he says we'll be like Christ, he doesn't really specify which parts of us are going to be like what aspect that is. And it very
Yeah,
well may be that we can fly and pass through walls. However, my theory, which I put in one of my books, is that you know how Paul says we will judge angels. I
Mhm.
have this is almost a sci-fi fantasy thought. It's just kind of an idea that like what if the arrangement is we will be put in charge of we will be our station will be slightly above angels, and I don't know why that would be, but let's say that's the case. But then it makes sense to me that we might would partner with angels for some of those things that, like, if I need to fly somewhere, well, can an angel carry me? We have, even in scripture, we have examples of angels like moving people from place to place, and
Yeah.
um, so I don't know. I kind of tend to think like our bodies might be fairly natural in the way that we think of it, obviously not dying, but that we would have access to other abilities through these other creatures that God has made that can do those things that we already know can do those things. Of course, He could just
Mm,
change us. I mean, that could be. I don't know. It's kind of fun to think about, but
yeah.
um, yeah. Hey, what are y'all working on? What projects y'all got going?
Um, so right now I am working on a, I think at this point it's like a 9-part series on apologetics,
Okay.
trying to walk um, a my target audience is trying to find someone who is more of a highly intellectual, like rational thinker who is openly like curious and seeking the possibility of a god. And I am trying to build that from the ground up, um, leading all the way basically to the gospel message.
Okay.
And so yeah, so it's dives a little bit into some philosophical stuff at the beginning, and then uh, breaks its way through scripture and all that kind of stuff. But the first episode, a little teaser, I guess, is going to be uh, exploring the first 4 words of the Bible, and
Okay.
so that'll kind of kick it off. First episode's written, haven't recorded it yet, but I'm working on the second episode, and I've got kind of like a blueprint laid out for the series.
Cool. Yeah, I like that. In the beginning, God, I think, is the first four words.
Correct.
Is that Did I get them right? Okay, see, I'm
Yes.
already on board with you. I already know the content. Yeah,
There
that's
you go.
cool. I like that idea of like starting from from the ground. In seminary there was so when I started seminary, I started as an apologetic student, and then I bailed on that because I wanted to do something different. Um, but I remember one of the debates that came up, kind of like internal debates, was something like, I don't remember what the terms were, but something like the one step method of just you start with Jesus, and that's the beginning of that's the beginning of the content. But the other method is you start with creation, and you build up and try to prove there's a creator, and there's more steps to that, because you could prove there's a creator, but then someone could say, and it's Vishnu, or some other. Um, and so I always was interested in like why why different people chose the approaches they chose. So like I'm interested to know for you, why Genesis? Like why did you start? And I'm this is not a criticism. I'm just wondering what your
Uh,
your thinking on it was. Why
so
start with
my
Genesis?
so my thinking is that um, I'm trying, because the target audience that I'm going for is someone uh, who can fall either into the like skeptic category, or someone who thinks in rational and logic is like their first thing. They're not super, emotionally feely type of people.
Yeah.
They generally have questions. They want things to make sense. They're seeking for truth through that lens. And the way that I think it's helpful is one, the way that the Bible kind of unfolds itself. But one interesting angle that I'm trying to go through here is,
Mhm.
I said the first episode is in the beginning God, which is true, but there is a slight small intro video that introduces the series, and it's for efficiency seekers. If you want to
Oh,
know truth
I like
and
that.
and
Yeah.
you want to know um, which, if there is a God, like, and which God is it? Like, there's so many religions and everything. um, what I've told people in the past is that the Bible makes a very interesting and helpful claim that the God of the Bible is the only and one true God, and so if that is true, then that eliminates a lot of time and energy spent exploring all
Yeah.
these hundred
Yeah, that's
different
good.
things. So
Yeah.
like the thought is like, okay, if you really want to look into it and you want to save some time, why don't you start with that? And if you
Yeah.
find out that it's true, search is over. If you're
Yeah.
still unconvinced,
Yeah,
then
that's
okay,
good.
you can, do your thing. But that leaves the door open for them to like, okay, well, this could be uh efficient. Let's at least try it or whatever. And
Yeah.
then I try to walk through the progression of um, you know, how everything comes to be and all this kind of stuff.
I like that. Yeah, because that's, I mean, one way to think of that would be like, can I investigate every religion in the world? Probably not. Probably don't really have the time or bandwidth to do that. But I could eliminate all that are inclusive and just look at the ones that are exclusive. Because the ones that are
Mm,
exclusive and say we have the, you know, we have the truth and no one else does. Those would be the ones to start with because if they're right, then yeah,
mhm,
you save the time. Um, yeah, that's interesting. I'm glad you're working on that. We when I started doing apologetics videos, I haven't done that in a long time, but when I started, I thought that the plan really was to minister to atheists or something. And that didn't turn out to really be what we did. What we wound up doing mostly was ministering to believers who were just kind of being bombarded by, you
mm.
know, atheist arguments or whatever.
Yeah.
Which
Yes.
that's good too.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not like you have to really pick, you know? I mean,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
it's just you'll do it naturally. I mean, it's just what'll happen maybe, or maybe it won't. Maybe you'll actually figure out how to find you know, a a core of open-minded agnostics or something. I like that you're looking for those who really are seeking the truth. I just can say, the internet doesn't have any of those. So, um,
I
Oh,
think, yeah,
nuts.
so to your point, Lucas, I wonder, I was really into apologetics when I was a new Christian in college,
yeah.
and I have a book on it out there, Scripturalism and the Senses. But I thought at the end of the day, apologetics is really more for discipleship. It's for shoring up the faith
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
Christians. And usually you come to faith for some other reason. You come to faith, and everyone has a slightly different story, but it's usually not because you were convinced of, Thomas Aquinas's 5 ways to God or whatever. It's usually because something else happened, and then when you're challenged by atheists and your faith gets shaken, apologetics is really important for, like, stabilizing your faith, making
Yeah.
you realize, "Yeah, this is rational. This makes sense. The
Yeah.
alternative worldviews do not make sense."
Yeah.
Um, like, how did you guys come to faith because of the conclusion of a rational argument,
Oh,
or
no, I
was it
didn't.
something else?
No, it's because I trusted my parents.
Okay, you trusted your parents.
And
Okay.
a lot of people like try to hide that and pretend like they came
Mm,
to it rationally, but no, I mean, I surmise that my parents were trustworthy to the extent that I was able to assess them and like, I like, well, those two grown-ups believe this, so I believe that. That doesn't make it right or wrong. Like a lot of people complain
mhm,
about that. That doesn't make it right or wrong. That just means that's how I approached it. Um,
mhm.
And you're
so
I mean, really, the Bible is like, parents, you're supposed to teach your children this, so
yeah, yeah,
that's really the normal way, that's the
yeah.
that's the ideal way.
Yeah.
What about you, Dane? How did it happen for you?
Yeah, mine birthed more out of a dire fear of hell.
Okay.
uh yeah, and my testimony timeline is a bit iffy because I like growing up, all I remember is uh wrestling with doubts and being scared type of thing. And so I mean, unless it was a time like when I was really young and I just like was flooded with doubts after the fact, the the first time that I could remember like being like, you know, like I'm going to heaven was actually like in Bible college.
Mm.
but
Wow.
uh
Wow.
but
Yeah.
what but what got me really seeking and just, you know, my mind really engaged in trying to figure all this out was like, man, I'm terrified um of being sent to hell and just like I was the type of kid that would um rehearse like, you know, the quote unquote sinner's prayer like hundreds of times type of thing because
Mhm.
just not knowing like how to go about looking into the Bible myself and just being surrounded by things you hear from like churches or the radio or whatever. And oftentimes it's just like all of the, you know, fire and brimstone type of stuff.
Yeah.
And so I was just naturally like terrified and just wanted to, how do I, how do I escape
Yeah.
that? So I'm very appreciative of the gift.
Yeah. I had a phase like
Wait,
that
wait.
too.
So, well, let's may I ask? Sorry, Lucas.
Yeah, go ahead.
So Dane, what you're saying is you had an existential fear, an existential need, and
Yeah.
the freeness of the gospel was made sense of not made sense of your fear, but answered that existential need, basically.
Yeah, like it helped me put things actually into perspective of like, wow, like something can be done about something has been done about this and
Yeah.
it's freely available to me. So it's just like, um, yeah, that's kind of how that unfolded over the time. This timeline can get a little spotty, I guess, but yeah, that's kind of the initial what triggered the initial search for me, I guess.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I was gonna say I had a similar phase, but it was after I'd believed. I mean, it was, I mean, I believed my parents when I was young and therefore believed Jesus because my parents said I could.
Mm,
And and that was legit. But then I kind of was in circles with some I didn't know it at the time, but some pretty strong Calvinist leanings,
mhm,
which really which I suspect really strong Arminian leanings would probably do the same thing, but or a similar thing, but they just they started it allowed these certain questions to crop up that didn't have satisfactory answers to me. And it kind of led me to this place where I remember praying every night, multiple times, yeah, like it's something like the sinner's prayer, like, Lord, forgive me, forgive me. And I couldn't even say of what. I mean, I was like
Hmm.
12, what had I even
mm,
done that I needed forgiveness for? I didn't know. I just knew I was supposed to pray for forgiveness, and I didn't know how to know that I'd had it. But that was apart from the original belief of just Jesus just saved me, and it was kind of like after the fact confusion. On the subject of now, this is really unpopular. What I'm about to say is really unpopular with atheists, but I think it does kind of answer a thing. I think not. I think I've done some research on this with some surveys that, in the same way that I think most people don't come to faith by intellectual arguments, I don't think they leave the faith for intellectual arguments either.
Ah.
And that is actually something I did some surveys on a few years ago. My premise was that I suspected that the intellectual arguments were the last step in a de-churching phase, like a
Okay.
secularization phase. And so what this the surveys that and I'm not an expert survey giver. I'm not a statistician or a sociologist. So I might have been baiting with some of the questions, but for the ones that actually answered, what it found was that over a period of a few years, a lot of times what would happen is someone would get involved in something that the church called sin, and then they would start to isolate from other believers.
Mm.
And there's a few steps in there, but the final step was kind of this intellectual gloss over. And the way that I came to see it was that's a way of saving your dignity as
Mm,
instead of admitting I morally failed at being a Christian. And let's remember that most of these folks are not coming from grace backgrounds; they're coming from
right.
performance based backgrounds, and so they're like, "Well, I'm failing." And it's uncomfortable to fail, and these people, I feel judged, and and so then they start to turn it around, and they start to say, well, they're the hypocrites,
Mm,
they're the ones that are stupid because they can't answer these intellectual questions. It's a way of just like building a wall of self dignity around around basically failing at discipleship. Now you can imagine how that's not a popular thing to say to somebody that's left the
yeah.
faith, but it seemed to be what I was seeing with these surveys, and maybe I should return to that and try to verify that a little bit more. And there's definitely outliers, I think,
Mm,
but there was enough of those that I was like, okay, this is a significant percentage that have followed this. And so, but here's the point though. The point is, if that's true of the person that I'm talking to, then what they need is not a discussion about an intellectual problem with the faith. What they need is something different entirely. And so I came to think of these intellectual arguments as red herrings, just things to distract from the raw nerve that's at the center of why they left the church, why they left the faith, because they don't want to talk about that. And that kind of fits in with my what I sometimes call the king reason approach to arguing. Like in chess, you always protect your king. You always, you throw pawns, you throw bishops, you throw rooks at the enemy, but you protect the king. And I think in this circumstance, if someone has left the faith because of what Jesus calls in parable, thorns and rocks, well, that's embarrassing. And so they're going to protect that reason, and they're going to throw other red herrings at the problem and say, oh, it's because of cosmology. Like, what decision in life is really made because of your cosmological stance, or your teleological stance? It's like, that's ridiculous. We don't make decisions on that kind of thing. Most people make decisions based on very personal, very emotional, kind of like factors. And so I just think those are often a way to distract. Not in every case, not in every case, but in a lot of cases, I think they're a way to distract because they're not really how people make decisions in the real world for the most part. That's the Lucas opinion. I could be way off, but I did do some surveys like 5 years ago, so I obviously know a whole
Okay,
lot.
well,
the
so
expert.
what you're saying there kind of fits on something I've been working on. I'm working on um I'm supposed to teach at a church in Pennsylvania in the fall on the
Okay.
Christian life. And I'm working on the dry title, the academic title. I don't know what the cool title will be, but the dry title is The Moral Psychology of Christian Transformation.
Yeah, you got to
And
change that
it's
crap. That's
yeah,
just don't do
that's
that.
technically what it's about.
Yeah.
But it's about basically how does transformation really happen? And I'm drawing on some people that maybe free grace people don't like John Piper's Christian Hedonism, this Scottish Calvinist named Thomas Chalmers, and my one of my favorite writers, Paul Zoll, who I recommend highly. And it's really about your life will change when you're not really when you're it's like you don't choose to just change. You have to be motivated to choose. And so it's like, what is that motivation? And the idea is you're motivated to change by your affections. When your affections change, then your life is going to follow your affections. And so based on, I think it's First John, it might be chapter 3, I forget, where it's like you can either love the world or you can love God. And Thomas Chalmers and John Piper have this whole thing where the only way to replace a lesser love is to replace it with a greater love. And so it's like, how do we increase that love for God that kind of relativizes and diminishes our love for the things of this world? And but it's emotion. These are emotional kind of motivations for transformation, not
Yeah.
necessarily because we all know adultery's wrong. But why do people commit adultery?
Yeah.
Because they are after some other type of, you know, there's some heartstring lesser love type of desire thing that's happening, and
Yeah.
we gotta treat people at the level of desires. Um,
Yeah. That's good.
I'm only at the beginning of that.
I like that. It makes me think of what Jesus said to the Ephesians in Revelation. You said you lost your first love, and what you would expect him to
Yes.
say is, "So love me more." But he doesn't. He actually gives them actions to perform. He
So
says, "Do the first works." So it's like
yeah.
the love follows the action, I think,
So
rather than the other way around.
that's my first that is my first lecture.
Oh,
That's
okay.
Revelation, the 3 stages of the Christian life. The 3 stages
Yeah.
are the first love, and then there's a cooling off period, and then you're supposed to return to that first love to get to your renewed love
Oh,
stage. So
okay.
you have 3 stages right there in that one sentence,
Yeah.
and it's like, okay, how do you move from stage 2 to stage 3? And we all do this for anything, for absolutely anything. It could be work, it could be your marriage, it could be there's always that exciting initial part, and then things start getting routine and start getting cooled off. And then you really have to dig in to kind of find for yourself the true enjoyment, the deep enjoyment. It's like you're like in marriage, you kind of go past that hormonal honeymoon period stage, and then you gotta
Yeah.
dig your way into a deep and abiding, true, lasting love for your partner. And I
Yeah.
think the same is like with Jesus. It's like there's that exciting time at the beginning and you're doing all kinds of great stuff for the Lord, but then you kind of get into a cooling off period maybe. You've experienced some disappointments, you don't have as many consolations from the Lord, and you got to push through to that abiding, that third stage, that abiding love.
Yeah.
Mm.
Or you always have the option of becoming lukewarm so that you can be spit out of his mouth.
Or
So,
yeah, if you stay lukewarm, spatooey.
yeah. Yeah, that's good. Dane is good at titles. He thinks about titles a lot for
Oh,
videos, so maybe he can help you with that
I was already trying to think of one. I was
horrible
like,
title. Say the
the
title again, Sean.
It's called a moral psychology of Christian transformation.
and the moral
Okay.
the moral migraine of
Yeah.
Messiah-like mentorship. Or
Oh, there
I
you go.
uh,
No, no, that's not bad.
I was thinking something like the greater love wins or something like
Yeah,
that. I
that's
don't know.
better. Yeah. Yeah, you use
Thomas
emotional
Thomas
words.
Thomas Chalmers' title for his thing is the expulsive power of a new affection. I think I should just go with that.
Ugh,
fancy.
that sounds so you mentioned John Piper. I don't know a lot about John Piper, but the things that I've seen, he does talk a lot about love. I think the misapplication, like like we should be talking about love and we should be talking about affection. And he uses this flowery language to talk about it. I think the miss with John Piper is just applying that to think
Mm,
that that's how you get salvation. But
Right,
apart from
right.
that, I mean, it's
yeah.
I mean, we definitely need to be thinking about how our affections.
Well, so John Piper's whole moral theory is called Christian hedonism, and it's this idea that we're commanded to delight in the Lord and take joy in the Lord and to enjoy the Lord. It's
Yeah.
like we shouldn't be sour-faced Christians. But my objection to John Piper is I'm loving this stuff, but I'm like, this would work so much better if a free grace person was teaching about Christian hedonism because he is
Yeah.
so inconsistent in teaching about work salvation. And even
Right.
with this joy stuff, the way he talks about it is, well, if you don't have that level of joy, maybe you're not saved at all, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like,
And
oh,
that's
dude,
just it's
Right.
such a
you're just,
distraction.
yeah,
Yeah,
you're shooting yourself
Right.
in the foot, man. It's
yeah.
like drop the
Yeah.
works salvation stuff.
Yeah, it just
Right.
distracts from it. Like I remember a quote from him. It was something like, "Do you love Jesus more than you love football?" And he was talking about how you might not be
Oh,
saved if you
I've
love
heard that.
football more. And I'm
Oh
like,
yeah.
how do I measure? Like, how do I
Yes.
quantify what my football love is?
Yeah.
And how do
Yes.
I quantify what my Jesus love is? I
It's
mean, it's like
totally
Yeah.
it's
subjective. Yeah.
so subjective. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's not wrong that we should love Jesus more than football. I mean, everybody agrees with that, but
Yeah.
Mm,
it's
Yeah.
what is the result of failing at that? And I think our,
Yeah.
our difference is just the result of failing of that is you just get up tomorrow and you try again, but you don't lose
Mhm.
your salvation, you know?
Well, I would
Yeah.
also say, John Piper's view of God just will not inspire the kind of love that we're supposed to have. And so in
Oh,
my
tell me about
lectures,
that. What does that mean?
well, because it's the kind of God who's like, you might go to hell because you might
Oh, yeah.
love football a
Yeah.
little bit too much.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's like that's the kind of God who's going to inspire the fear that Dane was talking about, that
Yeah.
fear of hell. Am I going to go there or
Right.
not? I
It was
think
Yeah.
that.
someone
Yeah.
so they need, I think Christian hedonism, if this is a valid theory, only works if you have a gracious God who shows us one way love, gives us eternal life for free, and is, there's maybe some discipline involved, but that relationship is unbreakable. That kind of love will inspire
Mm.
love that is greater than the love of football or the
Yeah.
world or whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
That's how it
it
works in
can.
human relationships too, right? Because like,
Yeah.
in like a husband or wife relationship, like a genuine love for the other person doesn't come from the other person threatening to beat them,
Yeah, I'm
but
gonna beat you if
but
you don't love
but
me
Yeah.
but
more.
but but
Yeah,
like
that's
being
good.
sacrificial and caring for them and doing things for them and knowing them and all that kind of stuff. That's more motivating than
Yeah.
listen here, you.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah, that's a really good point that, you know, punishment, and I don't mean discipline, I mean punishment, like, punitive eternity
Mm.
is a factor, but I think it's probably the most effective in the extreme cases, and I think it's so sad that a pastor that could have probably convinced you to believe in Jesus, in a very gentle and loving under a very gentle and loving image, instead used "You're gonna go to hell for eternity." I do believe that those that reject Christ are gonna be separated for eternity and, suffer torment, but it's like I don't feel like we have to jump to that. I feel like we can, you know, in extreme cases, that is probably part of the narrative that we need to bring out. But most
Well,
people want to know their creator. Most
yeah,
people
yeah.
want to experience, the
And
kindness of the Lord. Think of that little quote in Romans. It says something like, be aware of the kindness and severity of the Lord. If the kindness
Mm,
doesn't work, he can be severe, but
right.
we don't always need that, So,
yeah,
I don't
and
know.
I was just gonna say that yeah, like if any of the pastors that I remember hearing from like about hellfire were to, explain the grace of God, accurately or clearly, that would have been nice. But I don't think I ever heard that because the voices
Mm.
that I was hearing were people like John Piper and
Oh,
and
yeah.
and people that made it about like, you know, you choosing God or loving him and all of these things that should actually flow from someone who has already like been born into his family, not someone who's trying to get in there.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I have to love this guy uh, that has authority over my eternal destiny in order to uh, like sway him to in my favor type of thing. Like,
Yeah.
I never got the clear um, solution. I just heard kind of like the problem, and it was more problem oriented. Like, we're the
Ah,
problem. There's
yeah.
there's problems here, but I never heard like the clear actual like no, like God has the solution here. It always seemed like it was in our like either our courtyard, so like the ball's in my court type of thing,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it was all behavioral type of like based. And
Yeah.
so I'm just like, what? what
Yeah.
what do I do? So yeah.
Yeah, such a challenge, I wonder how much of I don't know with John Piper, I wonder how much of what he's doing is really dictated by, Calvinistic or Reformed theology, and how much of it is just his own perception. I mean, do y'all know what his
I don't know.
stance is?
I've
I
tried.
don't follow him
Oh,
enough to really know.
he's a Calvinist Baptist, loves Jonathan Edwards, kind of
Okay.
his uh, Jonathan Edwards scholar, and
Okay.
yeah,
The feet dangler.
Yeah.
what does that
Yeah.
mean? Oh,
Oh,
over hell. Yeah,
The
oh
feet
exactly,
dear.
dangler.
exactly.
Yeah.
Sinners in the
Yeah.
hands of an angry God. I mean, that's there you
Yeah.
go. That's how
Yeah.
do you
Yeah.
love that God? How does love for that God displace love
Yeah.
for the world? I'm not
Which
sure.
since we were talking about apologetics earlier, part of me thinks that like a lot of the things that people have issues with God is because they hear secondhand bad representations of what God is actually
Yeah,
like,
yeah, probably
which
true.
which
Yeah,
is
Oh,
which is
yeah.
kind of like my idea that or my theory. It's probably not original, but obviously, a lot of people will throw these caricatures of what God is like, and I'm like, but that's not what the Bible
that's
says
not
about
yeah,
God.
that's not who we're
Yeah.
saying he is. Yeah,
So
that's true.
my worship leader, and he's my associate pastor. His name's Fanny Abu Hamid. Uh, we're thinking about doing a kind of conference at our church, maybe in association with FGI, or I expect it to be kind of on this theme of deconstruction. I'm not sure of that word, but with this idea, it's when people deconstruct from the faith, I suspect they're deconstructing from a legalistic works righteousness, horrible view of God. And it's like you
True.
should deconstruct from that because it's not true. And here's let's I don't know if the opposite term would be rediscovery, reconstruction, rediscover grace. Here's the grace
Overhaul.
message. Overall, yeah, yeah. It's like there are atheists who reject, God, and I sometimes ask, you guys have probably heard this before. It's like, tell me about the God you don't believe in, because I probably don't believe in him either.
Yeah,
It's
Mm,
like just 'cause I'm a theist doesn't mean I believe in every type of version of deity. And there are some
yeah,
pretty th- there are wrong ones out there, and
yeah,
yeah, I don't believe those either.
mm,
yeah. Yeah, the Christian tent is so broad, and, I don't know, there's a lot that people have rejected without, without outright I mean, the baby with the bathwater kind of
mm,
situation. I kind
Mhm.
of wonder how often has someone rejected the organization that they grew up with, but by proxy has not really rejected Christ, but they
mm,
just have avoided all Jesus related things because it was so distasteful to them.
mm.
And I don't know. There's
Yeah,
probably
and
a
that's
lot
kind
of
of what
that.
I that's kind of like the hope with that series that I'm working on is like, okay, well, if we started from scratch and we went from the very beginning of what how the Bible defines and describes God and work our way from there and just let that kind of unfold, then uh that should like remove the obstacles of the, caricature versions of God,
Yeah,
like
I
a
like that.
big a big mean guy in the sky type of deal. Like, no, we're talking about a being that is like incredibly and like mind-bogglingly in a different category altogether than we are.
Yeah.
And 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 that's where it starts. And so like so anyways, I just think that and I do know some people that are like that. I know that uh hopefully hopefully Lucas's survey doesn't mean I'm wasting my time. Uh
No, yeah, I hope that
but
that's not what yeah.
no no
There's
but yeah, so
always
like
a
there's
place for talking about these things, there's always a place for it. What it might mean is just the target audience that you mentioned, you may realize, a year into it that, oh, I'm actually reaching different people than I thought I was going to reach. But you're still reaching
yeah.
people if you're talking about, if you're talking about the Lord, you're going to reach people. It's just what happens. So,
Yeah, and no, I was just messing with you there. But yeah, so that's the whole kind of like the idea of like, okay, let's remove all of the baggage and the misrepresentations and kind of like just open up and just run through the Bible kind of rapidly and some logical things that come with that, and and at least that provides a resource on the channel there, that someone stumbling across like wanting to investigate uh, Christianity or the Bible or like who is God type of thing. Hopefully, it can give them like a map or like a guide, and they can travel that road with that through that playlist or whatever.
yeah. Yeah, that's cool. Well, and that actually becomes valuable in comment section because you start to see the same kind of questions coming up when you're doing online,
Yeah,
social media oriented stuff. And so it actually saves you a bunch of time because you can just say, "Oh, I made a thing on that. Here's the thing."
right.
Um,
And
so hey, you guys, we're at 54 minutes, and it usually takes us about 5 to 6 minutes to get off this thing. So why don't we do a wrap up? Hey, who has the dog? Is that
yeah,
Sean?
I was gonna say, should I turn my volume down? That's our little dog upstairs.
I didn't know y'all had a dog. What is it?
It's a problem. That's what it is.
Ah!
No, is it, no, I don't even know what it's like. A little frou frou dog. His name is Max.
I didn't I hadn't known that. That's cool, Max.
Technically,
You
it's
know,
my
so
mother-in-law's dog.
oh, okay.
Yeah,
Well, so we can now say that Max was on the podcast too, so
indeed,
we'll
indeed.
include him. All right, any final thoughts, Sean?
Um, keep if you're being discouraged by the stuff that's around you, just remember to shift your perspective that this is fading away and what eternal is going to last forever. So focus on what is unseen but eternal.
You know what, Sean? I had a thought that I was going to say earlier, but then so see, this is why it takes 5 minutes to get off because I always go. But on the subject of replacing, you know, replacing with a greater love, I, what I was thinking of when you were talking about that is pets actually. And since Max is barking, this is a good fit. I had a cat when I was single that I mean, he was like pretty close to the center of my world. It was like Jesus and then Lynx and then every other human. Lynx was the name of the cat. And I mean, I just loved him and was very defensive about him and just, but then when and was still that way even after I was married, by the way, which is a little sad, but when we had kids, the love for the kids, they did not make me not love the cat. It
Oh
was
yeah.
like they made my ability to love so much more capacious. It just increased the size of the love tank or whatever to where I
Yes.
still loved the cat the same amount, but I realized in that at that time, oh, it's actually a very small amount compared to how much I can love my child,
Oh
you
yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I have observed many times on social media, especially, earlier in my life, when a girl especially was single, she'd post lots of this is not just one girl, it's across many girls. They'd post a lot of puppy pictures and cat pictures. But then they'd get married and they'd still be posting cat pictures and puppy pictures. But once they had their first baby, there was no more cat pictures or
Nothing. Yeah.
dog pictures to be seen. It was just
Yeah.
baby, baby, baby,
Yeah.
Hmm.
because that greater
Wow.
love totally replaced that. Well, maybe not totally replaced, but relativized extreme to the extreme
That's
their
a good
love for their
word
pet.
for it. It relativizes it. Yeah, because I think it's
Yeah,
still there, you know? I mean, they're not stomping the dog to death once they have kids.
yeah.
They still love the dog. It's just you have a greater capacity. Dane, any final thoughts from you?
Uh, I'm not sure if anyone's out there who's interested in an apologetic series. That's coming up, and so yeah, just be on the lookout for that. But I enjoyed chatting with you guys today.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I've got one final thought, sort of a funny thing that happened on the way to I told one of you guys about this, maybe Sean, I can't remember, but I was driving the kids to school and there was a bag of exploded trash in the middle of the road. Trash was everywhere. It's just debris, and it's like, oh man, some litterer chunked their trash up. But then as I got closer, I realized no, it's not a litterer. There was a dead skunk body. For those that don't know, skunks like garbage. There's a dead skunk body hanging halfway out of the trash bag in the middle of the road. And I had this like flash. I was like, oh, this is a spiritual lesson. Like you can get your head so buried in the garbage of this world that you don't see the calamity that's coming your way. You don't see the circumstances that are just going to steamroll you because you're so focused on the garbage of this world. And it made me think of Jesus's parable of the four soils where he talks about the thorns and the rocks and they kind of represent they can represent sins, but they also can just represent like distractions, the distractions of this world
Mm.
that just get our eyes off of Jesus. And so I don't want to be that skunk. I don't want to have my head buried in the garbage, missing what's coming. I want to be able to. I don't know. It kind of breaks down, but do you get the idea? Does that one work? Is that sort of like a Devo? Maybe that'd be like a youth group Devo. That's probably
I
about the
don't
level that one's for.
I don't ever want to see that as a children's book.
The skunk in the garbage bag.
He's
It
dead.
Yeah.
He's
it's
dead just
kind
like you're gonna be.
it's kinda too bad that
Ooh.
he was a skunk because, like, I don't know, that ruins the mystique of it. Like, if he was some majestic creature like a unicorn or something, it'd be different, but a skunk, I don't know. Anyway, that's my final words. Hey, thanks for listening, everybody, and, we're aiming at trying to do this weekly, so hopefully we'll talk to you next week. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.
All right. See ya.